welcome to the Noble Ape Podcast, Ape Reality. I'm Tom Barbalet, and this is again being recorded live on TalkShoe. I have recorded one Ape Reality since the last one. However, I thought about putting it out on the feed and decided it was probably better that I recorded a considered Ape Reality with regards to the current goings-on, both in terms of the Noble Ape development and also in terms of the biota development. So for folks who've listened into Biota Live recently, you will have heard that there's some potential redesign for the Biota site, potentially some unification of the mailing lists, and also maybe not necessarily a change in format of Biota Live, but just acknowledging the different kinds of content that Biota Live seems to be producing, or certainly has produced over the past year. And there's quite a bit of behind-the-scenes stuff associated with this that I don't necessarily want to go into details here about, but I may be talking about in the future. So for now, I don't think a lot really is going to change with the Biota site and the Biota community in the near future. However, there are going to be some different directions that come from the Biota Live podcast, potentially the Biota Live feed, and also the development which up until now has been known as Biota Eve, but seems to be moving in an interesting and perhaps somewhat independent direction. However, all this has been taking my time. In parallel to this, a publisher who contacted me with regards to two separate books and then kind of dropped off the map in an October last year kind of time frame, contacted me again and acknowledged that their email had just been problematic. They'd obviously had problems with their email hosting. And they asked if I was still interested in writing the two particular books. So I've pulled together some chapters, some I don't even know what you'd call it. I guess the overview of the book that I tried to get published in 2007, or at least I tried to find an agent for in 2007, and moved it in a direction which could be one of the two books. So that is what I've been working on. Recently, I've also, surprisingly, been doing some Noble Ape development, and the Noble Ape development that I've been working on relates to the two windows per previous discussion, and also moving more of the functionality into the Cocoa version. The current Cocoa version has inherited some of the carbon source code associated just with file opening. And the plan is obviously to get full Cocoa, get the functionality that currently is being used through Carbon in Cocoa, and do a new release. Now, per the Biota Live schedule, I now have my Saturday afternoons free, or at least my wife has a course then, and aside from recording podcasts, I will be putting a lot of time into the Noble Ape development and also the writing. I'm using them to play off against each other, which I think has been a technique that I've used in the past with regards to writing and Noble Ape development. And in addition to this, I've also been working on this 1993 circa text. So a lot of interesting stuff going on currently, but not a lot of it is actually being put out in the public domain as yet. And also I'm thinking a lot about basically the directions for the future, both with the Biota site and also with my own development, this idea of writing books and, I don't know, mixed feelings I have with regards to book production, maybe moving into self-publishing, but also the potential that really books are just the wrong kind of medium. And obviously I've been experimenting over the past 4+ years with this whole audio podcasting thing, and it's been very useful in terms of at least gathering a community, if not strengthening a community. And I've been thinking a lot about just the directions that I want to take my writing development ideas in the next few years, and whether books are really the direction that I want to take all this through. For the time being, I think books are the medium that I'm choosing, chapters, etc. But I think in the medium term I need to have a slightly better strategy, particularly with the issues of user interfaces. And this is really quite curious. I've come to the point where I'm really starting to wonder whether traditional software in terms of executable applications, these kind of things, is the direction that I want to take my own development, my own ideas in artificial life, or whether there are other directions that this movement could be taken. And I've thought a lot recently, particularly about the discussion of creating something that was a kind of community development platform for Biota Eve, or whatever it becomes known as in the near future. And the ideas of the kind of websites and integrative work and what will actually be developed through this, whether it will be standalone downloadable applications akin to what Noble Ape has been to date, or whether it'll be something which is more an interactive kind of online presence, maybe even something in the vicinity of a Facebook application or something like that, to get a new generation involved in artificial life and the ideas of artificial life. And my main motivator to this has just been looking at the recent gatherings of artificial life interested folk when they come together and photograph together. The fact that we appear to have lost at least a generation, if not a generation and a half, of folks. I think as I'm in my early 30s now, the folks I'm primarily communicating with are my age or older, and the folks that are younger than me are within probably 5 years younger than me. They're interested in this whole artificial life development thing. So I think we've lost the message with regards to at least a generation, if not a generation and a half. And that's starting to cause me some concern. Certainly a lot of the stuff that we're doing seems to be reinforcing a community which is already not necessarily artificial life advanced, but certainly artificial life well-read, part of a community which, stretches into their 50s and 60s, even their 80s. Some of the biota listeners are of that generation. I'm not sure if they listen to Ape Reality as well. But I just kind of get the sense that this is a movement which is aging in some regard, but has not actually reached backwards. And part of that is to do with the interfaces. It's also to do with the modes of communication. And really this is the problem that I'm setting myself with regards to all this biota community discussion is, are we really serving both the kind of traditional historical artificial life community, the contemporary developers, and also what I would consider the beginners or the people that are just starting to explore artificial life, and are we providing the resources that they need? And really that's the feedback that I've gotten from almost all the correspondence that I've received when I put out the request for feedback. I got quite a few emails. I got quite a few emails prior to even the request for feedback about moving in this direction. So the time frame that I've given myself with regards to this whole thing is probably a kind of March, April time frame, and I've got a few ideas that seem to be percolating through. None necessarily that I want to make public currently, but I think what will happen is those in the community that are interested in participating in the different directions that I propose will, make themselves known, and I think what will come out of this is probably a stronger and maybe even more unified movement. Some of the most interesting feedback that I've received through this process has been folk that have moved away from the biota community, particularly people in the past couple of years. And what I find curious is when I started doing the editorial duties at biota.org 5 years ago now, these were really the people that I wanted to captivate and capture, and what has happened is that the biota community has moved in a slightly different direction and some of these people have been lost. How does one do this? Well, this is the problem I'm facing currently, and it's certainly along my thinking about the historical legacy of the biota movement and really where I want to take it. And that's probably about as much as I can say. Obviously, in parallel to this, there's the Artificial Life Work Group. I've had some correspondence with Mark Badeau and his people associated with that, and I think that'll produce some interesting directions too. Whether or not that's through biota or some hybridization or the International Society directly, that's still being discussed. But certainly I think the timeframes are such that all these things will come together with announcements sometime probably in March, early April, associated with all the possible directions that this thing will go. As I said on Biota Live, nothing will happen with the Biota Conversations mailing list. It will continue as it has been. There may be some other changes with regards to the Biota site, particularly unifying a lot of the divergent mailing lists, and certainly with regards to the work group as well, because I think the important thing with work group is that it's not just a surveying, it's actually an active work group of interested folk. And similarly, the thing that's been called Biota Eve up until now, I think will become solidified in a site project direction and hopefully an interface which will lead people to collaborative development but not be as cumbersome as the current kind of wiki traditional site kind of aspect to it. So all this obviously is taking away from traditional Noble Ape development time, and I really feel this particularly in parallel to the writing. This is also some of my motivation as well, that to have a passive site like the Contemporary Beta site in terms of people just emailing me to do the updates is very different than to have a site with multiple users, maybe 10, 15, 20, maybe 40 different users that are all actively updating their projects, posting content, all this kind of stuff. So in this regard, the notion of an active site is really what a portion of the community is looking for currently, just to promote their projects, basically, but also as a means of collaborative work. This is my thinking currently. In terms of Node Lite development, I want to get a version out relatively soon. My writing commitments, which ultimately are fundamentally about Node 8, but some of them are kind of broader, more generalist artificial life discussion, are also taking my time, but it'll all come together. And I'm interested in hearing from Ape Reality listeners. What are your thoughts, ideas? What more would you like to see with Node 8? Would you like to see Node 8 move into some kind of, potentially Node 8 the Facebook application, for example, something maybe more online or Java-esque? Do you see there's a need for this, or do you like it as downloadable, runnable, independent software? All these things are in my thinking currently, and I really do enjoy receiving feedback, comments, criticisms even, along this line. So if you have anything that you want to say to me on this general rambling thinking, please don't hesitate to get in contact with me, tom@noble8.com, and hopefully I'll record an Ape Reality in the near future with more solid thinking, maybe even after the release of the next version of Noble Ape Simulation. Anyway, this is Tom in Las Vegas, signing out for Ape Reality. Thank you very much for tuning into this podcast. Look forward to you tuning into the next podcast.